It's moving. Inside his fur. I swear something is alive in there. Dr. Anna Carter had seen her fair share of stray animals brought into her small veterinary clinic in the sleepy town of Willow Creek, but never had she uttered such a sentence before. She pulled back the thick, matted clumps of golden fur with gentle fingers, feeling the weight of uncertainty settling on her chest. The dog had been found deep in the woods just beyond the town, curled up near a fallen log, weak but still breathing. The man who had found him, Daniel Harper, stood by anxiously. He was a retired firefighter who spent most of his days hiking the surrounding forests. That morning, he had come across the dog while scouting a new trail. The way the animal had looked up at him, as if silently begging for help, had been enough to make him carry the weak creature all the way back to town. Anna looked up at Daniel, her fingers still parting the dog's fur. "Are you sure he was alone when you found him?" Daniel nodded. "I searched the whole area, just him. Looked like he'd been out there for a long time." Anna nodded, trying to push away the unease creeping into her thoughts. "Okay, let's clean him up. We need to get a better look." She motioned for her assistant, Ellie, to prepare warm water and antiseptic. The dog, a retriever mix, barely stirred as they worked. He was dehydrated, his ribs faintly visible beneath his golden coat. His eyes, tired but kind, flickered open every so often as if he was aware of what was happening but had no strength to react. As Anna carefully trimmed away the tangled fur, her breath caught. There, hidden beneath layers of dirt and knots, was something tiny and trembling. At first, she thought it was a wound, but as she leaned closer, she realized there were tiny paws. Ellie gasped. "Oh my gosh, is that—" Anna gently lifted the small, squirming form. It was a newborn kitten, no bigger than a walnut, nestled into the dog's fur, its tiny body pressed close, seeking warmth and protection. Daniel stepped forward, disbelief written all over his face. "You're telling me this dog was out there in the woods keeping a kitten alive?" Anna placed the kitten on a soft towel, her heart squeezing at the sight. "That's exactly what I'm saying. He must have found it and took care of it the only way he knew how, by keeping it warm." The room fell into silence, save for the steady sound of the dog's breathing. Daniel exhaled slowly. "That's one incredible dog." Anna looked down at the retriever mix, her expression softening. "Yes, he is. And whatever he's been through, he still made sure this little one survived." They worked quickly, washing away the grime and treating the dog's malnourished body. The kitten, though tiny, seemed strong enough to have a chance. Anna carefully checked it over, ensuring it had no visible injuries. Its fur was a deep gray, its eyes still closed, too young to have made it on its own. "The mother is probably long gone," Anna murmured, looking at Daniel. "This little guy had no one but him." Daniel glanced at the dog, who was now watching them with quiet eyes. "Seems like he's got a story to tell. Question is, how did they end up in the middle of the forest together?" It was a good question. Anna had no doubt the dog had once been someone's pet. He was too social, too gentle, to be completely feral, but there was no collar, no identification, only a past shrouded in mystery. Ellie wiped her hands on a towel and nodded toward the retriever. "We should check for a microchip." Anna agreed and grabbed the scanner, running it gently along the dog's back. The small device beeped after a few seconds. "Bingo," she murmured. Daniel crossed his arms. "Well?" Anna frowned at the screen. "It's registered, but this can't be right." Ellie leaned in. "Why?" Anna hesitated before looking up at them. Because according to this dog was reported missing 5 years ago. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. 5 years? Where has he been all this time? The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. 5 years was a long time for a dog to survive alone, especially one that had been domesticated. And now he had somehow come back with a kitten clinging to him. Anna took a deep breath, glancing down at the dog. I guess we're going to find out. The clinic door chimed as another person entered. It was Sheriff Mark Evans, a familiar figure in Willow Creek. He had short-cropped hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, but he was known for having a soft spot for animals. Heard you found something interesting, he said, stepping closer to the exam table. Daniel nodded. You could say that. This dog has been missing for 5 years, and somehow he survived. Mark whistled low. 5 years? That's remarkable. You pull up the owner's info yet? Anna turned to the computer and entered the microchip number. A few moments later, the screen displayed the registered owner. Ava Whitmore, she read aloud. She lived 2 towns over. Mark's face changed, his expression darkening just a bit. Ava Whitmore? That name sounds familiar. Anna looked at him. Why? Mark sighed. Because she passed away 3 years ago. Silence filled the room. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. So, if she's gone, then who's been looking for him? Anna looked down at the retriever mix, feeling an even deeper sense of mystery. That's what we need to figure out. Anna tapped her fingers on the desk as the information settled in. The fact that Ava Whitmore had been dead for 3 years only deepened the mystery. If she wasn't alive to look for the dog, then who had been keeping track of him? And more importantly, where had he been all this time? Ellie hovered nearby, concern evident on her face. So, what do we do now? Anna exhaled, focusing back on the exhausted retriever. First, we take care of him. He's in rough shape. The dog's eyes fluttered open slightly at the sound of her voice. He was listening, even in his weakened state. She reached out and ran a reassuring hand over his head, careful not to disturb the kitten still nestled against him. Sheriff Mark cleared his throat. I'll try and track down any next of kin. Ava was from 2 towns over, but maybe she had family still around. Anna nodded. That would help. If he belonged to her, someone might still be looking for him, but it still doesn't explain how he survived this long. Daniel crossed his arms, deep in thought. Dogs are resourceful, sure, but 5 years out there? And then to show up with a kitten clinging to him? It's almost like he was taking care of it. Ellie smiled softly. Maybe he was. Some dogs just have that instinct. Anna continued examining the dog, noting the scratches on his legs, the signs of wear and tear that hinted at hardship. It looks like he's been moving for a long time. His pads are rough, but not fresh wounds. He's traveled distances. Mark shifted on his feet. I'll check in with some of the local shelters and vets, see if anyone else has spotted him over the years. If he's been wandering, someone must have seen him. Thanks, Mark, Anna said. In the meantime, I think he needs a name. Ellie tilted her head. Do we go with the one on his microchip? Anna glanced back at the screen, reading the registered name. Max. She smiled. Max suits him. Daniel nodded. Max it is. The retriever didn't react to the name, which only raised more questions. Had he forgotten it? Had he been called something else in the past 5 years? Anna pushed the thoughts away for now and focused on the present. Let's get him fed, she said, standing up. We'll go slow, small portions at a time. His stomach won't handle much. And we need to make sure the kitten is stable, too. Ellie got to work preparing food while Daniel knelt beside Max. The dog barely lifted his head, but his tail gave a small thump against the table. Even in his exhausted state, he still had a little life left in him. Anna carefully took the kitten and checked it over again. It was tiny, but strong. He must have kept it warm. That's the only reason it's still alive. Daniel exhaled. That dog's got a heart of gold. The next hour was filled with careful feeding and hydration, slow movements to avoid overwhelming Max. The kitten suckled from a dropper, tiny paws flexing in the air. Max watched, but made no move to stop them from helping his small charge. As Anna worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that this story was far from over. Max had lived a life no one knew about, and somehow, against all odds, he had come back. That night, as the clinic quieted down, Anna sat by Max's side. "We'll figure it out, boy. You're safe now." Max let out a deep sigh, his eyes finally closing in restful sleep. Outside, the night wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere out there, the past 5 years of Max's life remained a mystery. But Anna had a feeling she was about to find out exactly what had happened to him. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the clinic's windows, casting a warm glow over the sleeping dog and kitten. Ellie arrived early, carrying a fresh cup of coffee for Anna. "How's he doing?" Anna rubbed her eyes and gave a small smile. "He slept through the night. I think the food helped, but he's still weak. He's been through a lot." Ellie nodded, setting down the coffee. "And the kitten?" "Holding on," Anna replied. "I'm going to do another checkup later, but I think they both need rest more than anything." Before they could say more, the clinic door opened, and Mark stepped in. He carried a file under one arm, and had a look on his face that told Anna he had news. "I made some calls. Turns out Ava Whitmore's brother still lives in the area. His name's Thomas." Anna sat up straighter. "And? He was surprised to hear about Max," Mark continued. "Said he thought the dog had run off the same night Ava disappeared." Ellie frowned. "Disappeared? I thought you said she passed away." Mark sighed. "She did, but not right away. She was reported missing first. Authorities searched for her for weeks. No sign of her or Max. Then, about 2 years later, her remains were found in a wooded area outside of town." A heavy silence filled the room. Anna glanced down at Max, now curled up peacefully. So Max went missing the same night as Ava. And now, 5 years later, he shows up again with a kitten? Mark nodded. Thomas said Ava adored Max. He thinks if the dog survived, maybe he saw what happened to her. Maybe he even stayed by her side. Daniel, who had entered quietly and had been listening, spoke up. "If Max was with her when she disappeared, and he just now turned up, where has he been all this time?" Anna looked at the golden retriever, running a gentle hand over his fur. "That's what we need to figure out. But first, we make sure he's strong enough to tell us." Anna sat back, her fingers drumming lightly on the clinic desk as she processed everything. If Max had disappeared the same night as Ava, had he been wandering for 5 years? Had someone taken him in? And why had he suddenly reappeared now, of all times? Ellie watched Anna's face carefully. "You're thinking this is more than just a lost dog case, aren't you?" Anna nodded. "Something about this doesn't add up. Dogs don't just vanish for years and come back like this, especially not with a kitten. There's more to his story." Mark set the file he was carrying on the desk. "I spoke with Thomas on the phone. He said Ava was always taking in strays. That dog meant everything to her. He was devastated when they both disappeared. Anna frowned. Did he ever have any theories on what happened? Mark hesitated before answering. There were rumors. Some people thought Ava had just left town. Others thought she might have had enemies. She was a reporter, did a lot of investigative work. Ellie blinked. Wait, so you think she might have been in danger? I don't know. Mark rubbed his chin. Her case was never officially ruled a homicide, but her remains were found too decomposed to determine a cause of death. Her family never got closure. Daniel leaned against the counter, arms crossed. And Max? If he was with her when she disappeared, and he just shows up now, maybe he knows something. Anna sighed. If only dogs could talk. Max, as if sensing the attention, lifted his head slightly, his weary eyes meeting Anna's. He let out a soft huff and rested his head back down, exhaustion still weighing him down. Well, until we get answers, Anna said. He needs more time to recover. Let's keep an eye on him, make sure he gets stronger. And the kitten, too. Ellie nodded. I'll take the first shift watching them tonight. Mark sighed and picked up his hat. I'm going to dig into Ava's case, see if I can find anything that might explain where Max has been. If anything comes up, I'll let you know. As Mark left, Anna watched the golden retriever closely. He was more than just a lost dog. He was the key to an unsolved mystery, and something deep in her gut told her that finding out the truth was more important than she realized. Later that evening, as the clinic grew quiet, Anna sat by Max's side, watching his chest rise and fall with each deep breath. The kitten curled up near his stomach, its tiny body moving rhythmically with sleep. Anna reached out, lightly scratching behind Max's ear. He stirred slightly but didn't fully wake. Daniel returned with a bag of food and supplies, setting them on the counter. Figured we'd need extra. Good thinking, Anna replied. We'll have to see how Max does over the next few days. If he regains strength quickly, that means he's been eating well. If not, then we know he's been struggling for a long time. Daniel sat across from her. You ever think about what these animals go through before they get here? Anna nodded. All the time, every stray, every injured animal that comes in, it makes you wonder. They have stories, even if they can't tell us. Daniel looked at Max. This one's got a story for sure. And I can't shake the feeling that we're not just going to forget about it. Anna sighed, leaning back in her chair. I don't think so either. Something tells me we're just at the beginning of it. The next morning, Ellie arrived early and found Anna asleep in the chair next to Max. The dog was awake now, his eyes brighter, his tail wagging faintly at the sight of her. The kitten was stretching, yawning in a tiny squeak. Ellie smiled. Morning, Max. How are we feeling today? Anna stirred at the sound of her voice and stretched. How's he looking? Better, Ellie said. He's got more life in him already. Anna nodded, standing and walking to the counter to pour a cup of coffee. We need to start figuring out our next steps. Mark's looking into Ava's case, but I think we should do some digging too. Ellie frowned. Like what? Like checking around town, Anna said. See if anyone remembers anything from 5 years ago. If Max has been seen anywhere. Maybe even looking into Ava's articles. See if she was working on anything big before she disappeared. Ellie considered it. That's not a bad idea. If she was investigating something, maybe it got her into trouble. Anna sipped her coffee, deep in thought. And if Max was with her, he might have been taken too. Daniel arrived a short while later and leaned against the counter. Mark just called me, said he found something odd. Anna raised an eyebrow. What? Ava's last article, Daniel said. She was writing about something connected to a real estate development, but it never got published. Her editor killed the story the week before she disappeared. Ellie frowned. That's weird. If it was important enough for her to investigate, why kill it? Daniel shrugged. Mark's still digging, but he thinks someone didn't want it getting out. And if that's the case, maybe it's tied to what happened to her. Anna exhaled slowly, glancing at Max. So now we have a missing dog, a journalist who vanished under suspicious circumstances, and a story someone didn't want published. Daniel nodded. And the one common thread? Max. Ellie crossed her arms. So what do we do next? Anna took another sip of her coffee, looking at Max, who was watching them as if he knew exactly what they were saying. We find out what Ava was working on, and we find out where Max has been. The sun had barely risen when Anna stepped outside the clinic, breathing in the crisp morning air. She was still groggy from the restless night she had spent watching over Max and the kitten. But there was no time to dwell on fatigue. There were too many unanswered questions. Ellie met her at the front door, 2 steaming cups of coffee in hand. Figured you'd need this? Anna took one gratefully. Any updates from Mark? Not yet, Ellie said, but Daniel's already making calls. He wants to see if any of Ava's old colleagues remember what she was working on before she disappeared. Anna sipped her coffee, staring off into the distance. I just don't understand why she was investigating that development. What did she find that made someone want to silence her? And why was Max with her? Ellie added. And where has he been all these years? The clinic door chimed as Daniel stepped inside, phone in hand. He had a grim look on his face. That was one of Ava's co-workers, Lisa Harding. She remembers Ava being concerned about the project, but she never told anyone exactly what she had uncovered. All she said was that she believed someone was hiding something big. Anna set her coffee down, feeling a rush of determination. Then we need to find out what it was. Daniel nodded. Lisa's willing to meet with us later today. She still has some of Ava's notes. Maybe there's something in there. Ellie looked down at Max, who was watching them attentively from his bed. And what about him? He's looking better, but I don't want to push him too hard. Anna kneeled next to Max, running her fingers through his fur. We'll take it slow, but something tells me he's been waiting for this moment just as much as we have. By late afternoon, they arrived at Lisa Harding's home, a modest house on the outskirts of town. She welcomed them inside, leading them to her office where stacks of old newspapers and documents covered the desk. Lisa pulled out a worn notebook, flipping through its pages. This is Ava's. I held on to it after she disappeared. She told me she had stumbled onto something that could ruin some very powerful people. But before she could publish, she vanished. Anna took the notebook, scanning the scribbled notes. There were mentions of financial transactions, property purchases under shell companies, and a series of names she didn't recognize. But one name stood out. James Holloway. Daniel frowned. That name sounds familiar? Lisa nodded. He was the head of the development project. Rumors swirled that the whole thing was a cover for something else, but no one could ever prove it. Anna turned to Daniel. Didn't Mark mention something about Holloway's name coming up before? Daniel's expression darkened. Yeah, and not in a good way. Lisa sighed. Ava was onto something, and if she had proof, someone made sure she never got to share it. Max let out a soft whine, his ears perking up at the sound of Ava's name. He slowly got to his feet, taking a few shaky steps forward. Ellie's breath caught. He recognizes her name. Anna reached out and gently scratched behind Max's ear. I think we're finally getting close to the truth. But the truth, they all knew, could be dangerous. And if Ava had lost her life for it, they had to tread carefully. Because someone had gone to great lengths to bury the past. And now, Max was leading them straight to it. Lisa hesitated before speaking again. Ava told me she was being followed. She thought someone was watching her, but she didn't have any proof. I told her to be careful, but she laughed it off, said it came with the job. Anna exchanged a look with Daniel. Did she ever tell you exactly what she thought was being covered up? Lisa flipped a few pages ahead in the notebook and pointed at a scribbled note. Land transfers don't add up. Shell companies. Who's behind them? Daniel read over her shoulder. If she was looking into shell companies, someone definitely wanted to keep her quiet. If she exposed them, it could have brought everything down. Ellie looked at Max, who was staring at the notebook as if he understood. So, what if she found proof and someone took her out before she could release it? Anna frowned. And if Max was with her that night, maybe he saw something. Maybe he even ran away when she was taken. Lisa took a deep breath. Then that means someone out there might know he's back. And if they think he remembers anything, they might come looking for him. A chill ran through the room at her words. Anna glanced at the golden retriever, now curled up at her feet, and knew one thing for certain. Max had survived for a reason. And now, it was up to them to make sure that reason wasn't lost forever. The following morning, Anna stood outside the clinic, watching as the first rays of sunlight crept over the horizon. A weight hung over her shoulders. Too many unanswered questions. Too many unsettling possibilities. Max had survived for a reason, but what had he endured in the years since Ava's disappearance? And more importantly, was he still in danger? Ellie joined her, rubbing her arms against the early morning chill. Didn't sleep much? Anna shook her head. Too much on my mind. Lisa's right. If someone was willing to go to such lengths to cover something up, they might not be done yet. Ellie sighed. We should talk to Mark again. See if he's found anything else on James Holloway or the land transfers Ava was looking into. Just then, Daniel pulled up in his truck, stepping out with a thick folder in his hand. His expression was grim. We've got a problem. Anna's stomach twisted. What is it? Daniel handed her the folder. Lisa called me early this morning. She went back through Ava's notes and found something buried deep in her research, an old email thread between Ava and an anonymous source. It looks like she was getting information from someone inside the development company, and that someone warned her she was in danger. Ellie took the folder from Anna, flipping through the pages. They told her to stop asking questions, that she was getting too close, and then she disappeared. Anna's hands tightened around the folder. Do we know who the source was? Daniel shook his head. No name. Just an email address that doesn't exist anymore. But Lisa thinks Ava might have written down clues somewhere. We just need to find them. Ellie looked toward the clinic door, where Max lay resting inside. And Max? If he was with Ava that night, he might know something. But how do we figure out what? Anna exhaled. We follow every lead Ava left behind. If someone out there still wants this buried, they won't stop now. And we need to be ready. A few hours later, they met with Mark at the sheriff's office. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. I've been digging, and you were right to be worried. James Holloway? He disappeared 2 years ago. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. Disappeared? Mark nodded. His company fell under investigation, but before anything could come of it, he vanished. No one's heard from him since. Ellie frowned. So if Ava was investigating him, and he disappeared, what if they were after him too? Anna tapped a finger against the desk. Or what if he's still out there? What if he knows something? Mark hesitated. There's one more thing. Lisa called me this morning, too. Said she felt like she was being followed. She's scared. A chill ran through the room. Anna exchanged a glance with Daniel and Ellie. If Lisa was being watched, then whoever had been behind Ava's disappearance might know they were looking into it now. "We need to move fast," Anna said. "We need to find out what Ava knew before it's too late." Mark nodded. "I'll have someone keep an eye on Lisa. But be careful, all of you. If someone was willing to kill to keep this quiet once, they won't hesitate to do it again." As they left the office, Anna's mind raced. She looked at Daniel and Ellie. "We need to go back through everything Ava left behind. There has to be something we're missing." Daniel nodded. "And we need to keep an eye on Max. He's the only living connection to that night. If someone thinks he remembers something, they might come after him." Ellie exhaled. "Then we better be ready for whatever comes next." As they got into the truck and drove back to the clinic, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the past wasn't done with them yet. And Max, faithful, loyal, and carrying secrets no one could understand, was leading them straight into the heart of it all. Later that evening, Anna sat on the floor beside Max's bed, running her fingers gently through his fur. He had improved significantly over the past few days, eating more and regaining some of his strength. Yet his eyes still held a distant sadness, as if he knew something they didn't. "What happened to you, boy?" she murmured. "What did you see?" Max let out a soft whimper and nudged his nose against her palm. Daniel entered the room, holding another set of notes he had picked up from Lisa earlier. "There's something else," he said, sitting beside Anna. "Ava mentioned a location multiple times in her notes. It's a cabin, an abandoned one just outside of town. I think it might be where she was the night she disappeared." Ellie appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "So what do we do?" Anna looked down at Max, then back at her friends. "We go there. If Ava left something behind, it might be the key to all of this." The following morning, armed with flashlights and a growing sense of unease, they drove toward the remote location Ava had written about. The drive was long, taking them deep into an area that hadn't been developed in years. Overgrown brush lined the dirt road, and the trees seemed to close in around them the further they went. Finally, they arrived. The cabin stood in the middle of a clearing, the wood darkened with age. The windows were cracked, and the front porch creaked under their weight as they stepped up onto it. "This place gives me the creeps," Ellie muttered. Daniel pushed open the door, revealing a dust-covered interior that had been left untouched for years. A table stood in the center of the room, old newspapers and yellowed documents scattered across it. Anna moved forward cautiously, scanning the papers. This must have been where Ava was digging through everything. But why here? Max, who had been quiet until now, suddenly tensed. He let out a low growl and took a step toward the back of the cabin. Ellie swallowed. "I don't like that." Anna followed Max's gaze, her heart pounding. "There's something back there." As they moved toward the back room, a faint noise echoed from outside. A rustling, then footsteps. Daniel turned quickly. "We're not alone." Anna froze, her breath catching in her throat. The noise outside wasn't just the wind rustling through the trees. It was deliberate, steady. Someone was out there. Max remained stiff, his growl deepening, his body positioned between Anna and the back of the cabin. Daniel reached for the flashlight on his belt and clicked it on, shining it toward the cabin's entrance. "Who's there?" he called, his voice firm but cautious. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the sound of hurried footsteps retreating into the woods. Whoever had been outside wasn't waiting around to be seen. "They were watching us," Ellie whispered. Do you think they knew we were coming? Anna's pulse pounded in her ears. If they knew about Ava's notes, they could have guessed we'd end up here sooner or later. Daniel stepped carefully to the front door and peered into the darkness beyond the cabin's porch. They're gone now, but I don't like this. If they were willing to wait and watch, they might come back. Max let out a low whine, his ears flicking as if he was listening for any lingering sounds. Anna knelt beside him, running a hand through his fur. He's still on edge. Ellie exhaled, looking around the room. We came all the way out here. We should at least see if we can find anything Ava left behind. Anna nodded. Let's split up and look around, but keep close. If anything seems off, we leave immediately. They moved cautiously through the cabin, scanning the floorboards, old furniture, and scattered documents. The air was thick with dust, and every step they took stirred it into the light filtering through the cracked windows. Anna focused on the table in the center of the room. It was covered in faded newspapers and old files, most of which had yellowed with age. She flipped through them, recognizing some of the names Ava had written in her notebook, names tied to the land deal she had been investigating. Ellie crouched near an old bookshelf, running her hands over its surface. A lot of these books haven't been touched in years, she murmured. But look at this one. She pointed to a single book that seemed slightly cleaner than the others, as if it had been handled recently. Daniel stepped over and pulled it free from the shelf. As soon as he did, there was a faint click. Anna's heart skipped a beat. What was that? Daniel took a step back, as part of the bookshelf shifted slightly. He ran his hand along the edge and found a gap between the wood panels. It's hollow behind here. There might be a hidden compartment. Ellie grabbed her flashlight and shone it into the crevice. Sure enough, there was a small, dusty metal box tucked away inside. Anna carefully reached in and pulled it out, setting it on the table. This had to be Ava's, she said, her fingers trembling slightly as she unlatched the rusted lid. Inside, there were several folded papers, a small tape recorder, and a flash drive. Anna carefully pulled out the papers and skimmed over the contents. These are financial records, transactions under fake companies, money being funneled to offshore accounts. Ava was right. Someone was laundering money through that land deal. Daniel picked up the tape recorder, turning it over in his hands. Do you think there's a recording of Ava on this? Ellie stared at the flash drive. If there is, we need to hear it. Anna carefully packed everything back into the box. Let's take this back to the clinic. We need to go through all of it somewhere safe. As they turned to leave, Max suddenly let out another low growl. Anna followed his gaze to the window. A shadow moved in the trees. Daniel didn't hesitate. We need to go. Now. They rushed out of the cabin, Max keeping close to Anna's side. As they reached the truck, Anna stole one last glance toward the tree line. Whoever had been watching them was still there, hidden in the darkness. And they weren't alone. Back at the clinic, Anna secured the metal box on her desk, her hands still trembling. We need to go through this carefully. If Ava was onto something this big, there's a reason she hid it. Ellie booted up her laptop. Let's check the flash drive first. If there are documents on it, we might get more insight. Daniel plugged the drive into the computer, and a list of files appeared. Most of them were labeled by date, with Ava's shorthand in the file names. One, however, stood out. It was simply named, If Anything Happens to Me. Ellie inhaled sharply. That's not ominous at all. Anna clicked on the file, and a video began to play. Ava appeared on screen, looking exhausted but determined. Her voice was steady, but there was a weight in her eyes. If you're watching this, then something happened to me. I don't know if I'll disappear or if they'll try to make it look like an accident, but I can't stop now. I found proof, real proof. The people behind this land deal aren't just laundering money. They're covering up something far worse, and they won't let anyone expose them." She paused, glancing over her shoulder. "I need to get this information out before it's too late. If you're seeing this, please don't stop digging. Someone has to finish what I started." The screen went black. A heavy silence filled the room. Max whimpered, breaking the tension. Anna's chest tightened. She knew. She knew they were coming for her. Daniel clenched his jaw. And if they knew she had this, they'll come for us, too. Ellie shuddered. "Then we need to be ready." Anna stared at the screen, determination settling in her gut. "We finish what Ava started. No matter what." Anna sat back in her chair, staring at the darkened laptop screen. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the clinic's overhead lights and the occasional rustling from Max's corner. The retriever had curled up beside her, his head resting on his paws, but his eyes remained open and alert. He felt it too. Something had shifted. Ellie leaned against the desk, her arms crossed tightly. "So what now? We have Ava's evidence, but it's not like we can just walk into the sheriff's office with this. We don't even know who we can trust." Daniel rubbed his temples. "We need to go through everything on that flash drive and cross-check it with the papers we found in the cabin. If Ava was right, if this land deal was more than just money laundering, we need to figure out what they were really covering up." Anna inhaled deeply, her fingers tapping against the desk. "First things first, we need to secure this data. We don't know who else might be looking for it." Ellie nodded. "I'll back everything up onto a separate hard drive. We should also store a copy somewhere safe, in case something happens." Daniel glanced at the window, as if expecting to see someone lurking outside. "I don't like the idea of staying in one place too long. If whoever was watching us at the cabin saw us leave with this, they might already know where we are." Max suddenly lifted his head. Ears perked. A low growl rumbled from his throat. Anna's pulse quickened. "What is it, boy?" A moment later, the clinic phone rang, its sharp chime cutting through the tension in the room. Ellie moved to answer it, but Anna held up a hand. "Wait, let it go to voicemail." They all listened as the machine clicked on, Ava's recorded greeting playing before the beep. There was silence at first. Then, a voice. "You don't know what you're getting yourselves into. Leave it alone." The call ended. Ellie paled. "Oh, God. They know." Daniel swore under his breath. "That was a warning." Anna's hands clenched into fists. "Or a threat." Max let out another low growl, his gaze fixed on the front door. The night outside was still, but the air in the clinic felt heavy, charged with something unseen. Anna turned back to the others, her voice steady. "We need to leave. Now." Ellie hesitated. "Where do we even go?" Daniel was already grabbing his jacket. "Somewhere they won't expect. We can't go home, and we can't stay here. We need a place to regroup." Anna thought quickly. "There's an old ranger station up past the ridge. It's not in use anymore, and it's off the grid. We can go through Ava's files there." Ellie nodded quickly, already packing up the laptop and hard drives. "Let's do it." They moved fast, gathering what they needed while keeping an eye on the windows and doors. Anna scooped up Max's leash, but the retriever didn't need it. He stuck close, his movements tense and aware. They stepped outside into the cool night, moving quickly toward Daniel's truck. Just as they reached it, headlights appeared at the end of the road. A car, moving slowly, its driver clearly watching them. "Get in," Daniel ordered. They climbed in just as the car sped up. Daniel slammed the truck into gear, tires spinning against the pavement as they peeled away from the clinic. Anna twisted in her seat, watching as the vehicle behind them hesitated at the clinic before turning around and following. "They're tailing us!" Ellie's voice was high with panic. "Hold on!" Daniel growled, gripping the wheel tighter. He took a sharp turn onto a dirt road, kicking up dust as the truck bounced along the uneven path. The other car hesitated for a moment, then followed. Anna's heart pounded. "They won't stop. We need to lose them." Daniel pushed the accelerator, weaving the truck through the narrow road. The forest around them grew denser, shadows closing in as they climbed toward the ridge. The other vehicle was still behind them, but struggling on the rough terrain. "Almost there," Anna said, glancing ahead. "The ranger station is just past that bend." As they rounded the curve, Daniel spotted the narrow dirt path leading to the station. Without hesitation, he swerved onto it, his headlights bouncing against the trees. The road was barely wide enough for the truck, but he kept pushing forward. Behind them, the other car slowed, its driver clearly unsure about following them into the dark, winding path. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the vehicle turned off its headlights and backed away. Ellie exhaled shakily. "I think we lost them." Daniel pulled up to the ranger station, cutting the engine. The small structure stood silent, abandoned, surrounded by thick woods. It wasn't much, but for now, it was safe. Anna turned to the others. "We stay here tonight. In the morning, we figure out our next move." Max let out a huff, settling beside her as they stepped into the darkened station. Whatever was waiting for them, Anna knew one thing for certain. They weren't running away. They were just getting started. Anna sat back in her chair, staring at the darkened laptop screen. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the clinic's overhead lights and the occasional rustling from Max's corner. The retriever had curled up beside her, his head resting on his paws, but his eyes remained open and alert. He felt it too. Something had shifted. Ellie leaned against the desk, her arms crossed tightly. "So what now? We have Ava's evidence, but it's not like we can just walk into the sheriff's office with this. We don't even know who we can trust." Daniel rubbed his temples. "We need to go through everything on that flash drive and cross-check it with the papers we found in the cabin. If Ava was right, if this land deal was more than just money laundering, we need to figure out what they were really covering up." Anna inhaled deeply, her fingers tapping against the desk. "First things first, we need to secure this data. We don't know who else might be looking for it." Ellie nodded. "I'll back everything up onto a separate hard drive. We should also store a copy somewhere safe in case something happens." Daniel glanced at the window, as if expecting to see someone lurking outside. "I don't like the idea of staying in one place too long. If whoever was watching us at the cabin saw us leave with this, they might already know where we are." Anna leaned over her shoulder. "Open it." The document loaded, revealing a breakdown of dates, companies, and large amounts of money shifting between accounts. It wasn't just a land deal. The sheer volume of transactions suggested something much larger. Millions of dollars moving over several years, disguised under multiple shell corporations. "They weren't just hiding money," Daniel muttered. "They were hiding something bigger. Look at these dates. The same time Ava disappeared, these transactions stopped cold." Anna's breath caught. Meaning whoever was running this shut everything down after Ava got too close. Ellie scrolled further. "Wait, there's a name here. J.H. Holdings. Could that be James Holloway?" Daniel clenched his jaw. It fits. If he was behind this, then his disappearance wasn't a coincidence. Either he ran because he knew something was coming, or someone made him disappear to clean up loose ends. Anna felt Max press against her leg. The dog's warmth grounded her, keeping her focused. If Ava had evidence against Holloway, maybe she left something more concrete, something they couldn't erase. Ellie frowned, clicking through another set of files. There's a folder labeled Backup Location, but it's password protected. Can you crack it? Daniel asked. Given enough time, yes, but if Ava used something personal, we might be able to guess. Anna thought back to Ava's video message. She wanted whoever found this to finish what she started. Maybe the password is something meaningful to her. A date, a place. Ellie tried several combinations, fingers flying over the keyboard. After a long pause, she hesitated, then typed Max 2019. The folder unlocked. Daniel let out a low whistle. She named the backup after Max. Anna swallowed the lump in her throat. She trusted him, even back then. Inside the folder was a single video file. Ellie clicked play, and Ava's face filled the screen again, this time in a dimly lit space, her voice urgent. If you're seeing this, then I didn't make it. I don't know how much time I have, but this is everything I've found. They've been moving money through the land deal, but that's just a front. It's what they're really hiding that's worse. I have proof, documents, recordings. I hid them where no one would think to look, the one place they can't erase. She glanced over her shoulder. It's at the old reservoir, inside the main structure, beneath the storage unit. Everything is there. If you can get to it before they do, you'll have what you need to expose them. But be careful. They're watching. They always are. The video cut off. Silence filled the ranger station. Anna's heart pounded. The reservoir. That's where we go next. Daniel pushed away from the table. We need to move fast. If Ava hid proof there, they may already know. Ellie started shutting down the laptop. Then we leave now, before they realize we've figured it out. Max let out a soft bark as if he agreed. Anna ran a hand through his fur, drawing strength from his unwavering presence. They weren't just running anymore. They were going straight toward the truth. And this time, they wouldn't stop until they had it all. As they packed up to leave the ranger station, the unease in Anna's chest refused to fade. The night felt heavier, the air thick with anticipation. Max paced near the door, his tail stiff, ears alert. We'll take the back roads to the reservoir, Daniel said, glancing at the map on his phone. Less chance of being seen. Ellie zipped up her backpack. We have to assume they're tracking us somehow. We should leave our phones behind. Anna hesitated, but nodded. Good idea. We can't take any chances. They powered off their devices, leaving them in the ranger station. Anna took one last glance at Max. He met her gaze with silent determination. Let's go, she whispered. The drive through the back roads was tense, each shadow along the tree line feeling like a set of watching eyes. Daniel kept the headlights dimmed, maneuvering the truck carefully along the dirt path. We should be about 10 minutes out, Daniel murmured, gripping the wheel. If Ava's right, whatever she found is waiting for us there. Anna exhaled slowly, gripping Max's collar gently. Then we better be ready for whatever's coming. The road to the reservoir twisted through thick woods, the trees pressing in from both sides, as if trying to smother the path ahead. The truck's tires crunched against the gravel, the only sound in the tense silence that filled the cabin. Anna kept her eyes trained on the road, her fingers tapping against her knee. Max sat beside her, ears perked, his gaze locked on the darkness outside. This doesn't feel right, Ellie murmured from the back seat. If Ava hid something there, how do we know they're not already waiting for us? Max suddenly lifted his head. Ears perked. A low growl rumbled from his throat. Anna's pulse quickened. "What is it, boy?" A moment later, the clinic phone rang, its sharp chime cutting through the tension in the room. Ellie moved to answer it, but Anna held up a hand. "Wait, let it go to voicemail." They all listened as the machine clicked on, Ava's recorded greeting playing before the beep. There was silence at first. Then, a voice. "You don't know what you're getting yourselves into. Leave it alone." The call ended. Ellie paled. "Oh, God. They know," Daniel swore under his breath. "That was a warning." Anna's hands clenched into fists. "Or a threat." Max let out another low growl, his gaze fixed on the front door. The night outside was still, but the air in the clinic felt heavy, charged with something unseen. Anna turned back to the others, her voice steady. "We need to leave, now." Ellie hesitated. "Where do we even go?" Daniel was already grabbing his jacket. "Somewhere they won't expect. We can't go home, and we can't stay here. We need a place to regroup." Anna thought quickly. "There's an old ranger station up past the ridge. It's not in use anymore, and it's off the grid. We can go through Ava's files there." Ellie nodded quickly, already packing up the laptop and hard drives. "Let's do it." They moved fast, gathering what they needed while keeping an eye on the windows and doors. Anna scooped up Max's leash, but the retriever didn't need it. He stuck close, his movements tense and aware. They stepped outside into the cool night, moving quickly toward Daniel's truck. Just as they reached it, headlights appeared at the end of the road. A car moving slowly, its driver clearly watching them. "Get in," Daniel ordered. They climbed in just as the car sped up. Daniel slammed the truck into gear, tires spinning against the pavement as they peeled away from the clinic. Anna twisted in her seat, watching as the vehicle behind them hesitated at the clinic before turning around and following. "They're tailing us!" Ellie's voice was high with panic. "Hold on!" Daniel growled, gripping the wheel tighter. He took a sharp turn onto a dirt road, kicking up dust as the truck bounced along the uneven path. The other car hesitated for a moment, then followed. Anna's heart pounded. "They won't stop. We need to lose them." Daniel pushed the accelerator, weaving the truck through the narrow road. The forest around them grew denser, shadows closing in as they climbed toward the ridge. The other vehicle was still behind them, but struggling on the rough terrain. "Almost there," Anna said, glancing ahead. "The ranger station is just past that bend." As they rounded the curve, Daniel spotted the narrow dirt path leading to the station. Without hesitation, he swerved onto it, his headlights bouncing against the trees. The road was barely wide enough for the truck, but he kept pushing forward. Behind them, the other car slowed, its driver clearly unsure about following them into the dark, winding path. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the vehicle turned off its headlights and backed away. Ellie exhaled, shakily. "I think we lost them." Daniel pulled up to the ranger station, cutting the engine. The small structure stood silent, abandoned, surrounded by thick woods. It wasn't much, but for now, it was safe. Anna turned to the others. "We stay here tonight. In the morning, we figure out our next move." Max let out a huff, settling beside her as they stepped into the darkened station. Whatever was waiting for them, Anna knew one thing for certain. They weren't running away. They were just getting started. The ranger station smelled of old wood and dust, but it was quiet. Safe. For now. Anna locked the door behind them, double-checking the latches before stepping further inside. Max stayed close, his ears flicking at every creak in the aging structure. His body language told Anna he wasn't ready to relax yet. Ellie set the laptop down on an old wooden table, quickly plugging in the hard drive. We should go through Ava's files while we have the chance. If there's something in here that explains why they're after us, we need to find it. Daniel paced near the window, peering out into the darkness beyond the tree line. They won't give up. Whoever was behind Ava's disappearance is watching us now. They know we have something, and they're not going to let it slide. Anna inhaled deeply, centering herself. Then we need to stay ahead of them. Let's go through the files and see if there's anything we missed. Ellie started clicking through the folders on the flash drive, scrolling past spreadsheets and emails. Most of this is financial data, records of transactions between different accounts, some offshore. But this... She paused, her finger hovering over a document titled Project Timeline, Confidential. Daniel tightened his grip on the wheel, his eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror. We don't. But we don't have a choice. If we wait too long, they might get to whatever she left behind before we do. Anna exhaled slowly. Then we move fast. Get in, get what we need, and get out. No hesitation. The reservoir came into view, a vast stretch of dark water reflecting the moonlight. The old storage facility Ava had mentioned loomed in the distance, its outline barely visible through the thick mist rolling off the surface of the water. The place looked abandoned, forgotten. But that didn't mean they were alone. Daniel killed the headlights and coasted to a stop a few yards away from the building. We go on foot from here. They climbed out of the truck, moving cautiously toward the structure. The air was damp, thick with the scent of stagnant water and earth. Max trotted ahead, his body low, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. Anna crouched near the entrance, testing the rusted door handle. It groaned in protest, but gave way, revealing a darkened interior littered with old equipment and discarded debris. She stepped inside, the others following close behind. "All right," Ellie whispered. "Where exactly did Ava say she hid it?" Anna pulled out her phone, reading over the last transcript of Ava's video. She said beneath the storage unit. We need to find a hatch, a panel, anything that looks out of place. They fanned out, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Dust swirled in the air as Daniel moved aside an old wooden crate. "Got something." Anna hurried over, kneeling beside him. He had uncovered a metal hatch, partially hidden beneath a pile of discarded tarps. She reached for the latch, but Daniel caught her wrist. "Wait, what if it's rigged?" Ellie paled. "You think they booby-trapped it?" Daniel frowned. If Ava went through this much trouble to hide something, whoever was after her might have done the same to keep people away. Anna swallowed hard. "Then we check first." Carefully. They inspected the hatch for wires, triggers, anything that looked like it didn't belong. After several tense minutes, Daniel exhaled. "Looks clean." Anna nodded and slowly lifted the hatch. The metal groaned on its rusted hinges, revealing a narrow compartment beneath. Inside was a small, sealed container covered in dust and grime. "This is it," Anna whispered, pulling it free. Ellie stepped closer. "What's inside?" Anna unlatched the lid, her heart hammering against her ribs. Inside were neatly packed folders, a stack of photographs, and an old flash drive wrapped in cloth. She picked up the top photograph and felt her blood turn to ice. It was a picture of Ava, taken from a distance. "She was being watched," Ellie murmured, looking over Anna's shoulder. They were following her. Daniel pulled out one of the folders, flipping through the documents. These aren't just financial records. These are names, locations, people connected to the project. Some of them are high profile. If this got out, Anna nodded grimly, it would bring everything crashing down. Max let out a low growl. His body tensed. Anna's stomach dropped. We need to go. Now! A noise echoed outside, footsteps crunching against gravel. Daniel shoved the documents back into the container and sealed it. Move! They scrambled toward the exit, but as they stepped outside, headlights flared to life, illuminating the path ahead. Shadows moved near the tree line, figures advancing toward them. They knew we'd come here? Ellie whispered, her voice shaking. Anna gritted her teeth. Then we don't let them take us. Daniel scanned the area. Back to the truck. If we split up, we won't make it. Max barked sharply, his stance firm. Anna reached for his collar, steadying herself. We run on my count. 3, 2. Gunfire erupted, shattering the night. They dove for cover, scrambling behind a rusted-out vehicle near the facility. Bullets ricocheted off the metal, sending sparks into the air. Anna clutched Max tightly, whispering reassuring words to keep him calm. Daniel peered over the hood. They're closing in. We need to move. Ellie's hands were shaking, but she nodded. There's an old maintenance shed about 50 yards to the left. If we can make it there, we might have a chance to regroup. Anna took a deep breath. On my signal, we run. Stick together. Another shot rang out, embedding itself into the truck's frame. Anna clenched her jaw. Go! They sprinted toward the shed, keeping low. Max kept pace, his muscles taut as he ran beside Anna. The gunfire followed them, but they reached the shed, slamming the door shut behind them. Breathing hard, Daniel jammed a heavy metal bar against the door. That'll hold for now, but not long. Anna knelt beside Max, running her hands over his fur to check for injuries. We need to think fast. Ellie fumbled with the documents, her fingers trembling. If they want this so badly, we need to make sure it gets out. Daniel met Anna's gaze. We don't just run anymore. We take this fight to them. Anna steadied her breathing, forcing herself to focus despite the chaos unfolding around them. The gunfire had stopped momentarily, but she knew it was only a matter of time before their attackers repositioned. Max sat close to her, his ears flicking toward every sound outside the shed. He was tense, ready to bolt if necessary. We need a way out of here, Ellie whispered, her fingers gripping the documents like they were her last lifeline. We can't just wait for them to break through. Daniel scanned the walls, his eyes searching for an escape route. There's a vent near the back. It's small, but we might be able to squeeze through. Anna followed his gaze. The vent was rusted, barely holding on to its frame. It was large enough for Ellie and herself, but Daniel was broader. He'd have trouble. I'll go first, Anna decided. Once I'm out, I'll cover you from the other side. Ellie nodded quickly, moving toward the vent and prying at the edges. We don't have much time. They'll figure out where we are any second. Daniel wedged a crowbar beneath the vent's edge, pulling hard. The metal groaned as it loosened. Max let out a quiet whine, his body pressing against Anna's side. He didn't want to leave. We're getting out of this, boy, she assured him, scratching his ear quickly before climbing up into the vent. The metal was cool against her hands as she crawled through the tight space. Dust coated the inside, making it hard to breathe, but she pushed forward. After several agonizing moments, she reached the other side and kicked at the cover, sending it clattering to the ground outside. She dropped down, quickly scanning her surroundings. The area behind the shed was dark, covered in thick underbrush. No movement yet. She turned back toward the vent. "Ellie, come on!" Ellie scrambled through next, landing beside Anna with a soft thud. Daniel followed, barely squeezing through, his shoulders scraping against the rusted metal. Just as he cleared the opening, shouts rang out from the front of the shed. They had been spotted. "Run!" Daniel barked. They darted into the underbrush, staying low. Max ran beside Anna, his body close enough to feel against her leg as they moved. The night was thick with tension, their own ragged breaths the only sound they could hear over the pounding of their hearts. A bullet whizzed past them, striking a nearby tree. Anna ducked instinctively, pulling Ellie down with her. "We can't just keep running. We need to lose them." Daniel motioned ahead. "There's an old drainage tunnel about 50 yards down. If we get inside, we might be able to disappear." Ellie didn't argue. They pushed forward, adrenaline forcing them through the fatigue. The tunnel entrance loomed ahead, its concrete edges covered in vines. Anna slipped inside first, dragging Max along. The others followed, their bodies pressing against the damp walls. For a few minutes, all they could do was breathe. Listen. Wait. The sound of approaching footsteps faded, then disappeared completely. Ellie exhaled a shaky breath. "I think we lost them." Daniel nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "For now. But we're not safe yet." Anna ran a hand down Max's back, feeling the tension in his muscles. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move. They know we have this information. We need to get it somewhere safe." Ellie clutched the documents. "We need to expose them. If we don't, Ava died for nothing." Anna nodded, her resolve solidifying. "Then we don't stop. We take this all the way." Daniel's eyes met hers. "Then we do it together." Max let out a quiet huff, his body finally relaxing for the first time that night. They weren't out of danger yet, but they had a plan, and that was enough to keep going. The tunnel stretched far beneath the abandoned reservoir, its damp walls slick with moss. The air smelled of mildew and stagnant water, but it was their only refuge for now. They moved cautiously, the dim glow of Daniel's flashlight guiding the way. Ellie coughed into her sleeve. "How long do you think we can stay down here?" "Long enough to come up with a plan," Daniel replied, his voice low. "If we surface too soon, they'll still be watching for us." Anna paused, listening carefully. No echoes of pursuit, no signs of movement. But something still felt off. "We need to figure out how they found us so fast," she muttered. "We've been careful, but they knew we were coming to the shed." Ellie frowned. "Are you saying we have a leak?" Daniel shook his head. "No, but maybe our devices are compromised. Our phones. They could be tracking us that way." Anna quickly pulled out her phone, hesitating for only a second before powering it down. Ellie and Daniel did the same. "That might buy us some time," Anna said, "but we still need a way to get this information to someone who can help us." Ellie carefully unfolded the documents, scanning the names and locations listed. "These aren't just businessmen. There are law enforcement names here, politicians. This is bigger than we thought." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Then we need to go bigger. We take this straight to the press." Ellie shook her head. "No reporter will publish this without verification, and the people involved have the power to suppress it. We need to be smart." Anna's mind raced. "Then we get it to someone who has nothing to lose. Someone who isn't afraid of exposing the truth." Daniel sighed. "Do we even know anyone like that?" Ellie bit her lip, then nodded slowly. "There's one person, an independent journalist I know. She doesn't take bribes, doesn't cave to pressure. If we can get this to her, she'll get it out to the public." "Then we go to her," Anna said firmly. "But we have to be careful. No phones, no credit cards, we stay off the grid." Daniel looked back toward the tunnel exit, his expression grim. "They'll be looking for us. We need to move fast." Anna reached down, running her fingers through Max's fur. "Then let's not waste any time." With their path set, they moved forward into the darkness, determined to finish what Ava had started, no matter the cost. The cold tunnel air felt heavy as they moved cautiously forward. Every sound, every drop of water echoing off the walls, every scrape of a shoe against the damp ground felt amplified in the silence. Max trotted ahead, ears flicking, muscles taut with alertness. Anna knew he could sense what they did. This wasn't over yet. They emerged from the tunnel into the thick woods behind the reservoir. The darkness cloaked them, but it also concealed whoever might be lurking nearby. Anna pressed a hand against a tree, steadying her breath. "We need to head east," Daniel whispered. "There's an old service road about a mile from here. If we can make it there, we can get farther away before they realize we're gone." Ellie nodded, clutching the documents against her chest like a lifeline. "We have to be careful. If they tracked us before, they could do it again." Anna exhaled. "We'll move in a staggered pattern. No straight lines. Max stays with me. If he senses something, we listen." They set off through the trees, their footsteps muffled by the thick undergrowth. Max moved ahead but stayed close, his nose twitching as he caught unfamiliar scents. The night was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that warned of unseen eyes watching. Anna's fingers brushed against the fur of his neck, grounding herself. After nearly 20 minutes of careful maneuvering, Daniel held up a hand, signaling for them to stop. The trees thinned out ahead, and beyond them, a narrow, cracked service road stretched into the distance. "We're close," he murmured, "but we need a car. We can't stay on foot forever." Ellie frowned. "Where do we find one in the middle of nowhere?" Anna scanned the area, then pointed toward a distant structure barely visible in the dark. "There. An old ranger's station. If we're lucky, there might still be a vehicle there." They hurried toward the station, staying low. The small building was dark, the windows shattered, the door barely hanging onto its hinges. Daniel tested the handle and pushed it open with ease. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of rotting wood and rust. Ellie found a flashlight on a shelf and flicked it on, illuminating the room. "Check for keys. If there's a working truck, it might be out back." Anna moved toward a rusted metal cabinet, yanking the door open. Old maps, radios, and outdated ranger equipment tumbled out. She rifled through them, fingers searching until they closed around a ring of keys. "Got them," she said. "Now let's see if we're lucky." Daniel led the way through the back door, and there it was, a dusty, battered ranger truck, partially covered in leaves. "Think it'll start?" Ellie asked, skeptical. Daniel grabbed the keys from Anna and climbed into the driver's seat. He took a breath, slid the key into the ignition, and turned it. The engine groaned, sputtered, then roared to life. "We're lucky," Daniel muttered. "Now get in." They piled into the truck, Max jumping in last. As soon as the doors shut, Daniel floored the gas, peeling away from the station and onto the road. "Where's your contact?" Anna asked Ellie. Ellie pulled out a notepad, quickly flipping through her scribbled notes. "About 3 hours from here. If we stick to back roads, we can avoid being seen." Anna nodded, glancing at Max. He lay curled beside her, his body finally relaxing. She ran a hand down his back, whispering, "Almost there, boy. Almost safe." The night stretched long, but as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, they reached the meeting point, a small roadside diner on the outskirts of a quiet town. Daniel parked the truck, scanning the area. "We sit tight. Wait for her." Ellie's contact arrived 20 minutes later, a woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a worn leather jacket. She slid into the booth across from them, her expression unreadable. "Ellie tells me you have something explosive." Anna placed the documents and the flash drive onto the table. "This doesn't just expose a few corrupt businessmen. This is bigger. It's politicians, law enforcement. Ava died trying to reveal this." The woman picked up the files, flipping through them with practiced precision. "If this is real, you just became the most wanted people in the country." Ellie swallowed hard. "That's why we need you to publish it. Get it out there before they can bury it again." The woman nodded. "I can do that, but you need to disappear, at least for now." Daniel tensed. "We're not running." "You don't have a choice," she said. "These people don't just silence threats, they erase them. You got lucky once. You won't be lucky twice." Anna exchanged glances with Daniel and Ellie. They had risked everything to get here, and now they were being told to run. But deep down, she knew the journalist was right. "Max, too?" she asked quietly. The woman softened, glancing at the retriever. "Especially Max. He's proof Ava was right all along." Anna clenched her jaw, then slowly nodded. "Okay. Tell the world. We'll do what we have to." The woman pocketed the flash drive and stood. "You just made history. Now get out of here before it costs you your lives." As she walked away, Anna looked down at Max. He lifted his head, meeting her gaze with those same steady, knowing eyes. "We did it, boy," she murmured. "Ava can rest now." Daniel started the truck, and without another word, they drove away, disappearing into the horizon. They weren't running. They were surviving. And somewhere out there, the truth was finally being told.